The following podcast reflects our personal opinions and interpretations of publicly available information and should not be construed as factual assertions or legal advice. While we aim to provide accurate commentary, this discussion is speculative in nature and intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. We have taken care to conduct thorough research and carefully investigate the information discussed to ensure accuracy where possible. But we acknowledge that we may not have access to all the facts. As freelance producers, our views are entirely our own and do not represent or reflect the positions of any individuals or entities mentioned in this discussion. Any references to individuals, organizations, or events are made in good faith based on public available sources. We expressly disclaim any intent to harm reputations or imply unlawful conduct by any party. And with that said, let's get into it. Hey y'all, Lauren here, TV producer by day, reality junkie by night, and your guide to the galaxy of shows you love to hate, hate to love, and live to bitch about. This is Reality Bites, the podcast where we deep dive into the week's buzziest reality TV and pop culture happenings.
I'm Morgan. By night, I'm Lauren's co-host and other better half. And by day, I moonlight as an executive producer. I've been around the Bravo block enough to know, let's just say, where the bodies are buried.
We'll take you through the biggest and best water cooler moments of the week through a producer's lens you won't find anywhere else.
Buckle up, buttercups.
I've had enough of you, you beast.
Beast? How dare you?
This is Reality Bites.
Hey y'all, Morgan here. Executive producer, industry insider, and your semi-reliable narrator through this cinematic train wreck we call Hollywood. Now, if you're wondering where Lauren is, don't freak. She's not ghosting us. She's just knee-deep in an investigative report so massive, so mind-blowing, it's basically the journalism equivalent of a nuclear bomb. It's got nothing to do with this case, but when it drops, you'll get why she's been MIA. That said, even though I'm the one on the mic today, this series was a full team effort. Lauren and I both wrote and produced these episodes, and she was just as deep in the weeds on this as I was. This is our second deep dive into the It Ends With Us legal war. Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, Ryan Reynolds, and the kind of industry backstabbing that makes Game of Thrones look like a trust fall exercise. So without further ado, let's get into it. If there's one thing Hollywood loves, it's a good story. But what happens when the drama isn't scripted? It's real, raw, and playing out in boardrooms, courtrooms, and the headlines. What happens when power, leverage, and unchecked influence don't just shape a movie, but dictate who even gets to make one? Last time, we unraveled the tangled web of a legal battle that is shaking Hollywood's foundation, the war between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. Since then, the heat has turned into an all-out inferno. The stakes, monumental. The consequences, career-ending. In our 6-episode deep dive into It Ends With Us, we exposed WME's deep financial ties to Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. That was just the tip of the iceberg. Today, we're taking you beneath the surface to the power moves that have been unfolding behind the scenes. Because thanks to a slew of new legal findings, we now have more insight into what may have been more than just a high-profile fallout. But here's the question. What if we've been looking at this all wrong? Could there be another side to this story? Could this have been a premeditated coup engineered with precision aimed directly at Justin Baldoni? Was it a power play set in motion long before the world even knew what was happening? Let's break it down. Baldoni and Wayfarer aren't just saying that Lively wanted justice. They're saying she wanted domination, that she didn't just want to star in It Ends With Us, she wanted to own it, control it, shape it. And when the Wayfarer team resisted, their lawsuit alleges that she, along with husband Ryan Reynolds, her PR titan Leslie Sloan, and even the New York Times went into full-blown attack mode, a coordinated strike to erase Baldoni from his own film. And let's be clear, these are explosive accusations. The complaint details how Lively pushed for complete creative control, not just over production, but over marketing, messaging, and even the final cut of the film. The lawsuit claims that she refused to step back on set until Wayfarer signed her 17-point Protections for Return to Production, a document they say was meant to plant the seed of misconduct when none had actually occurred. But before we dive deeper, let's consider the other possibility. What if Blake Lively is actually innocent in all of this? What if this isn't a power play, but rather a desperate attempt to correct an injustice? Baldoni and his team claim that when they didn't bend the knee, when they wouldn't sign away their credibility, Lively took the fight to the public. But in Lively's amended claim, which was filed on February 18th, she not only doubles down on her allegations of sexual harassment and defamation by Baldoni and Wayfarer during production and promotion for the film, but it goes on to allege that 2 additional unnamed actresses from the film also lodged complaints against Baldoni and Heath, painting her as the crusader for those less powerful voices on set who didn't have a platform. However, it is worth noting that these alleged actresses aren't named, though given the makeup of the cast, she seems to imply that they're Jenny Slate and Isabel Ferrer. Is this Lively revealing a previously unseen arsenal that she and her legal team had been holding in their back pocket for depositions, discovery, and/or trial? Was this the ace held in their sleeve? Or a proverbial swing for the fences to combat the Baldoni's own amended suit released a couple of weeks prior, which not only laid out specifics of their assertions, but included a supporting document, a 168-page timeline of receipts made available publicly to everyone. Because I wonder, given the breadth of the documentation provided in Baldoni's amended suit, why didn't Lively include her own set of receipts to combat the shifting public narrative back in her favor? Baldoni's amended lawsuit paints a picture of a months-long scheme, one where Lively lay in wait, ready to unleash a calculated PR ambush that would brand him as a villain. And when the timing was just right, she detonated the bomb, with the New York Times as her megaphone. But it has to be noted that the deeper we dig, the more complex this story becomes. Could Lively have simply been fighting for her own creative integrity and for the integrity and safety of her co-stars rather than engaging in a calculated campaign against Baldoni? Was this about power or about protection? Well, given everything that is out there, this seemingly was about power, about control, about making sure the right people won and that the wrong people were erased from the industry permanently. But the allegations don't stop there. Baldoni's complaint states that when Lively and Reynolds felt the blowback of her press tour when she discussed products like her hair care line or her Betty Buzz and Betty Boo's drink lines, and they were branded as tone deaf, they demanded that Wayfarer fall on their sword, issue a statement, admit to mistakes, take the heat for her PR disaster, or else. And when Baldoni refused to take that fall, well, that's when the gloves really came off. But Baldoni and his team have seemingly provided proof, concrete receipts, evidence that Lively's claims were fabricated, that this was all part of a premeditated smear campaign, and in a jaw-dropping accusation, they claim she even had her lawsuit served while Baldoni and his team were evacuating their homes from the LA wildfires. The stakes here are colossal. This isn't just about two Hollywood stars locked in a bitter legal feud. It's about who controls the industry, who gets to tell the stories, who decides the careers that live or die. This case is pulling back the curtain on Hollywood's most insidious reality, the brutal war for absolute power. When we last left off, the battle lines had been drawn. On December 31st, 2024, Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios went to war with the New York Times, slapping them with a $250 million defamation lawsuit over the Megan Twohey expose inside a Hollywood smear campaign. Meanwhile, Blake Lively made her own high-stakes move, filing her official lawsuit in the Southern District of New York's federal court. Since then, the stakes have skyrocketed. What started as a behind-the-scenes power struggle and allegations of sexual harassment has detonated into a $650 million legal showdown, complete with accusations of civil extortion, defamation, and a PR war so ruthless it's making headlines almost daily. And now, Hollywood royalty are getting dragged into the fire because A-listers like Taylor Swift may be next in line to take the stand. On January 16th, 2025, Baldoni escalated the fight, filing his $400 million lawsuit in federal court, naming Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and powerhouse PR executive Leslie Sloan in what he alleges was a calculated takedown campaign. He then went on to file an even more robust amended suit on January 31st of 2025. Since then, the legal battlefield has only grown more explosive. Lively filed her own amended complaint on February 18th, and what started as a creative control disagreement has spiraled into a cutthroat war being fought in courtrooms, in boardrooms, and in the media. This case is now about far more than just a film. It is about power, control, and who dictates the narratives in Hollywood. And with A-list names like Swift being pulled into the fray, the stakes have never been higher. But perhaps the most shocking revelation, Blake Lively never signed a long-form contract or a letter of engagement at any point in the production, in post-production, or marketing of It Ends With Us, which is not only an industry standard, but a requirement for talent engagement on a project. No formal agreement. Nothing. And that right there, that's the crux of the power struggle that no one's talking about. Baldoni's team argues this was intentional, that Lively kept her name off official paperwork to maintain leverage over the film. Without a contract, she could withhold participation, make demands, and dictate the terms of her involvement at every stage. But Lively's team say the exact opposite, that this was Wayfarer's failure, not hers. And now she's arguing that there was a contract all along, just not the one people expected. This brings us to the loan-out agreement. Lively's lawsuit reveals that she did have a contract in place, but not a personal services agreement, as is customary for a project of this scope and a celebrity of her magnitude. Instead, her company, Blakel Inc., entered into a loan-out agreement with the film's production company, Wayfarer Studios. And that's important because loan-out agreements are not the same as standard talent contracts. They bind the actor's personal corporation, not the actor personally. So this means that Lively's payments were made to Blakel Inc. rather than directly to her, that she was technically contracted through her company, but not under a direct talent agreement, which could impact her contractual creative rights and limitations. And it's worth noting that loan-out agreements typically focus on compensation and legal protections, not necessarily creative control or promotional obligations. And here's where it gets messy. If the loan-out agreement didn't include press and marketing obligations, then Lively wasn't contractually required to promote the film. If it didn't specify her creative control limits, then Wayfarer may not have had a contractual basis to stop her from exerting influence. And that failure, intentional or not, is at the heart of Baldoni's lawsuit, which originally was filed on January 16th. This lawsuit goes far beyond creative disputes. Baldoni is accusing Lively, Reynolds, and Sloan of civil extortion, alleging that Lively launched a smear campaign to force creative control, of defamation, claiming that false accusations were strategically leaked to destroy his career and reputation, and a PR conspiracy alleging that Lively, Reynolds, and Sloan coordinated a takedown campaign with major media outlets like the New York Times. And Baldoni isn't just making accusations, though. He has texts, emails, production memos that contradict Lively's claims. If those receipts hold up, this case could reshape Hollywood defamation law and how PR-driven reputation warfare is litigated. But this case isn't just unfolding in court. It's playing out in real time in the media and on social media. And on January 23rd, 2025, Lively's legal team filed a motion requesting a gag order against Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman. Their side argued that Friedman was intentionally leaking details to the press to manipulate public perception. The judge denied their request, ruling that both sides had already turned this case into a public spectacle. That decision meant that Baldoni's legal team were free to continue releasing information and making public statements within what is allowable in the law. And Baldoni's team took full advantage, because on February 1st, they launched thelawsuitinfo.com in conjunction with their amended complaint filed with the court, a website dedicated to publicly releasing the legal documents and countering what they call misinformation from Lively's camp. It's an aggressive move, one that blurs the line between PR and legal strategy. And now, Taylor Swift's name has been pulled into the case. Back in February 5th, Baldoni's attorney hinted that Swift may be deposed, claiming that she was allegedly present during key conversations where Lively and her team discussed PR strategy to pressure Baldoni. That private text messages between Swift and Lively may support Baldoni's claims of a coordinated PR attack. Now, Lively's legal teams dismissed this as pure theatrics designed to create headlines. But if the court allows Swift's testimony, it could dramatically change the direction of this case. And in a stark turn of events, reports began swirling in the press beginning on February 6th that Taylor was distancing herself from Lively, amidst growing concerns that she was manipulated in her ongoing legal nightmare. Lively has wielded Swift's loyalty and influence as an invisible weapon throughout the film's behind-the-scenes battle for control, going so far as to refer to her as one of her dragons. But Taylor's renowned publicist, Tree Payne's invisible hand was all over these news stories being placed in the press, stressing Taylor's growing uneasiness around her publicized involvement in Lively's battle, even going so far as to seemingly rescind the invitation to join Taylor's box at the Super Bowl, where boyfriend Travis Kelce played. Taylor's growing distance certainly raises questions and eyebrows, but until she's deposed, will remain in the dark about the extent of her awareness or involvement. And here's another twist. Lively herself initially sought to depose PR strategist Jed Wallace, whom she originally named in her California CRD complaint in December as a co-defendant. Wallace also appeared in the notorious New York Times article, which was released in tandem with that initial complaint. But on February 5th, the same day Wallace filed a $7 million defamation lawsuit against Lively, well, she suddenly drops her request to depose him. Wallace's lawsuit claims that Lively falsely accused him of running a social media harassment campaign against her, damaging his reputation as well as his business. Now, this is major because Wallace was originally named in Lively's CRD complaint, but was later removed from her initial lawsuit. However, after Wallace brought his suit against Lively for defamation, she reintroduced him, or introduced him for the first time actually, into her amended complaint filed with the court on February 18th. This is a curious move as it begs the question of why wasn't it in the initial suit but added once he brought legal action against Lively. Was this in an effort to save face and credibility? Or is Lively casting a wider net based on unreleased or unreported evidence? Lively's legal team also began the discovery process, requesting a wide-reaching subpoena for all phone records between Baldoni, Heath, and the rest of Wayfarer going all the way back to 2022, without any specificity of scope. This was a request that was balked at by Baldoni's legal team, who submitted a motion to the court to amend the request. They claimed that it was an unprecedented request in scope and tantamount to a fishing expedition that would give Lively, Reynolds, and their teams unnecessary and unprecedented access to what could be privileged information outside of the scope of her allegations and complaint. As of now, the court has not issued a definitive ruling on the enforceability of the subpoenas. The legal teams for both parties are preparing for further hearings to argue their positions regarding their discovery requests. This aspect of the case underscores the escalating tensions and the complex legal maneuvers characteristic of the broader dispute between these two. And additionally, Lively's team have requested stronger protective orders be put in place after allegedly receiving violent and threatening messages relating to the lawsuit. Her attorneys have asked for certain discovery materials to be classified as attorney's eyes only to protect sensitive information. And while condemning the violent messages, Baldoni's lawyers opposed the proposed changes to the protective order, arguing that the existing agreement is sufficient. Lively's request does raise a question over scope. If her team is requesting legal protective orders be enacted, is it really for these alleged messages? Or are they being requested to encapsulate forthcoming discovery and testimony from her famous friends and colleagues like, I don't know, say Taylor Swift, to not make it into the court of public opinion? Clearly, this isn't a case about two actors just locked in a legal battle. It's exposing how Hollywood really operates. Contracts, NDAs, defamation lawsuits, and PR tactics. This fight is dragging the industry's hidden playbook into the spotlight, and the implications will shake the entire business and how PR's no longer invisible hand is used in shaping public perception. The deeper we go, the more we see this isn't just Baldoni versus Lively. It's about who really holds power in Hollywood. The rules are changing, and what's happening in this case could redefine everything from how contracts are enforced to how careers are made or destroyed. So let's break it down. What does this case reveal about the power games behind the scenes? Well, let's start with the contracts. One of the biggest jaw-droppers that Lively never signed hers. That move gave her unprecedented leverage over production. No contract meant no binding obligations. She could refuse to promote the film, demand last-minute creative changes, and even threaten to walk, all without technically breaching any agreement. It's a high-risk strategy, but if it worked for Lively, what's stopping other A-listers from doing the same? Traditionally, studios forced talent to sign before filming began. No signature, no job. But if a star can seemingly work without a contract and still get paid, this could change the entire power dynamic between actors and studios. And then there's the loan-out agreement. Lively did have a contract, but not a personal services agreement. Instead, her company, Blake Link, signed a loan-out agreement with the production. And that's a crucial distinction. A loan-out agreement binds the actor's company, not the actor personally. That means fewer obligations, more control, and a major legal gray area. If this becomes the new Hollywood power move, studios might have to rewrite their entire approach to talent contracts to close this loophole. NDAs were once Hollywood's ultimate tool for keeping disputes out of the public eye. But in this case, both sides have weaponized the press instead. Instead of silence, we're seeing leaks, strategic media placements, and public legal filings meant to control the narrative. The old way was simple. Settle quietly, use NDAs, and let PR firms handle damage control. But that's not what's happening here. Now, lawsuits play out in the headlines before they even reach a courtroom. And with Baldoni's website, thelawsuitinfo.com, setting a new precedent, we have to ask, are NDAs even relevant anymore? If celebrities start fighting battles through leaks and public documents, studios might rethink NDAs altogether. They're only useful if both parties fear breaking them. But if talent and executives decide public opinion is more powerful than legal silence, the NDA era could be coming to an end. Now, that said, we do have to note that when a crime has been committed, even an executed NDA becomes nullified and void. Now, this case is proving that Hollywood's lawsuits are obviously not fought in court. They're fought in the press. It's a new kind of legal warfare. The traditional model of settle, NDAs, control through story. Now the game has changed. Leaks, social media, and defamation suits are the new battlegrounds. Is this the future? Will every Hollywood scandal now come with its own website? If Baldoni's strategy works, we could be looking at a complete transformation in how defamation and reputation battles are fought in Hollywood. And that's been reflected even as we speak. On February 20th, Leslie Sloan's attorney submitted a motion in the New York federal court seeking to remove Sloan and her firm Vision PR from Baldoni's lawsuit. The motion asserted that the allegations against Sloan lack factual support, describing them as a smoke and mirrors exercise intended to divert attention from Baldoni's alleged misconduct. Sloan's legal team contended that the statements attributed to her, such as remarks about the cast's sentiments towards Baldoni and allegations of sexual assault, constitute personal opinions, expressions protected under free speech, and cannot form the basis of a defamation claim. While this is obviously contested by Brian Friedman and Baldoni's camp, the court is yet to rule on that motion, so we'll have to keep an eye out. But drilled down, at its core, this case is about who really controls the film. Lively allegedly demanded script changes, wardrobe budget increases, and even a PGA producer's mark. Without a contract restricting her power, Wayfarer had no real way to push back. If Lively wins, could more actors demand greater creative control even when they're not producers? Could this shift the balance of power in Hollywood permanently? And then there's the civil extortion claim. Baldoni's lawsuit alleges that Lively and her team used threats to pressure him into giving up control. Now, if that claim sticks, it could set a new legal precedent in Hollywood disputes. Could we start seeing more civil extortion claims in industry feuds? If Baldoni's case is successful, we might see executives and creatives fighting back against PR-driven takedowns with lawsuits instead of silence. So what happens next? Well, studios may start demanding stricter contract enforcements to prevent another Lively situation, as it will most certainly be called from here on out. PR firms might have to change their entire strategy if they become legally liable for defamation. And defamation lawsuits could become Hollywood's new go-to weapon. And let's not forget the A-list alliances at play. If Swift is forced to testify, will other celebrities distance themselves from Lively and Reynolds to avoid the fallout? Are we on the verge of a Hollywood legal arms race? If contracts, NDAs, and PR firms lose their grip, lawsuits could become the new power currency. And one thing is clear. Hollywood is watching. Because no matter who wins this case, the industry is already changing because of it. Unlike a typical defamation case, where the battle unfolds in court, this one is playing out on two fronts, both legal and public. And while Lively's team has taken a quiet behind-the-scenes approach through PR powerhouse Leslie Sloan, Baldoni's camp, led by high-profile attorney Brian Friedman, has gone full throttle, taking his fight straight to the public. And in this war, winning the media battle is just as crucial as winning in court. Because in Hollywood, reputation damage can be permanent, regardless of the final verdict. And that's why celebrity defamation cases play by different rules. Well, first up, the actual malice standard. In defamation law, public figures like Baldoni have to prove that Lively, Reynolds, and Sloan knowingly spread falsehoods or acted with reckless disregard for the truth. And that's an incredibly high bar. Even if Baldoni can prove Lively's claims were misleading or exaggerated, that's not necessarily enough. He has to show that they knew what they were doing was false and pushed them anyway. Take Amber Heard's case against Johnny Depp. Depp's legal team won by proving Heard knowingly exaggerated or fabricated allegations. But without that level of proof, defamation cases rarely succeed. But here's the kicker. Winning in court doesn't always mean winning in Hollywood. In Hollywood, survival isn't about those wins. It's about staying in the industry's good graces. Lose the media war before the trial even starts, you're finished. And here, Lively's team dominated the early media cycle, thanks to her initial allegations and Megan Twohey's expose in the New York Times. That put Baldoni's team on the defensive. They had to pivot fast, and they did. But the case has evolved, or devolved, into a trading of barbs and accusations filed in the court but litigated in the press and on social media. These media chess matches, where PR strategists, crisis managers, and lawyers work together to shape the narrative, are unlike anything we have ever seen. And in this case, Lively's camp played the industry game, while Baldoni's team is going for a far more aggressive approach. Leslie Sloan, who we know is Lively and Reynolds' longtime publicist, is a master at quietly shaping Hollywood narratives. No public legal statements, just behind-the-scenes influence, ensuring journalists and executives align with her story. We've seen this before. Look at Scarlett Johansson and Disney. When Scarlett sued over Black Widow, her team framed Disney as exploiting an actress during the pandemic. But Disney fought back, releasing salary figures to shift public perception. A PR war disguised as a lawsuit. Almost taking a page, Baldoni's team is also rewriting the rules. Instead of working back channels, they're taking it straight to the press. Friedman has appeared on The Megyn Kelly Show, The Today Show, and TMZ, among others, taking the battle directly to you, the audience. Why? Because Baldoni was already buried in the media cycle first. Before the Times article, Baldoni's team might have fought quietly. But once Lively and Reynolds took control of the headlines, Baldoni and Friedman had no choice but to fight back publicly as well. Media exposure isn't the side effect, it's the weapon. Control the headlines, and you can pressure the other side into settling, shape public perception, and even influence jurors before a trial. And Baldoni's team isn't just using press interviews. They launched their website, dedicated to releasing legal documents before journalists can even spin the story. It's an unprecedented move, and it could be the new standard. Imagine a world where celebrities control their own narratives rather than rely on traditional media. It's a risky play, and if for any reason Baldoni's team seems too aggressive, it could backfire on them in court. But if Lively's industry backing holds strong, Baldoni could be blacklisted, verdict or not. So again, this case isn't just about two actors. It's about how Hollywood handles scandal in the digital age. If Lively wins, PR remains king. Hollywood's power players keep controlling narratives behind closed doors. But if Baldoni wins, well, lawsuits may become the new weapon against PR takedowns. So the real question is this the future of Hollywood lawsuits? Are we looking at an era where media, PR, and legal strategy are all part of an all-out war for public perception? One thing remains very clear. Hollywood and the rest of us are watching. Because no matter who wins, this case is rewriting the rules of power across the entertainment industry. In our next episode, we're breaking down how Blake Lively didn't just take control of It Ends With Us. She rewrote the rules to make sure she'd never have to fight for power again. No contract, no oversight. And yet, she dictated production, forced hiring changes, seized Final Cut, and in the end, she walked away with the most powerful title in Hollywood, a Producers Guild of America mark. Was it earned, or was it stolen? We dig into the strategy, the power plays, and the industry-shaking implications. Next time on Reality Bites. Thanks for joining, guys. And if you like what you hear, please donate a cocktail or subscribe. There's a lot of work that goes into doing these investigative reports, and, well, frankly, it becomes a full-time job. So if you enjoyed it, recommend to friends, leave us a 5-star rating or review, and donate a cocktail or sign up for our subscriptions. You will not be disappointed. Thanks for everything, guys, and until next time, see you later.